The crystal whiskey glass was still cold in Vivienne Hart's hand when she heard her husband say her name like a death sentence. Not softly, not lovingly, not like the feared mafia boss of Chicago speaking to the woman who once shared his bed. This sounded like a man discussing an inconvenience he was preparing to erase. It was 2 in the morning when Vivienne discovered the truth. Her husband had already filed for divorce, frozen every account, and planned to leave her with nothing. The empire she built? He was taking it all. But Luca DeLuca made one catastrophic mistake. He forgot who designed the structure hiding his entire criminal operation. If you want to see how a brilliant woman destroys the mafia boss who tried to erase her, stay until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Quote, the rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Vivienne stood at the penthouse window overlooking Lake Michigan while water streaked down the glass like something bleeding. The city glowed beneath storm clouds. Chicago spread out below her like a kingdom she no longer belonged to. Behind her, the marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting. 12-foot ceilings, custom Italian furniture, art worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt dead. She heard Luca moving through the hallway behind her, his footsteps confident, unhurried. He didn't look at her anymore. Not really. His eyes passed over her the way people glance at furniture they're planning to replace. You're still awake, he said. Not a question, an observation. Vivienne turned slowly. Luca stood near the kitchen island wearing a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Expensive watch, sharp jawline, the kind of face that made photographers ask him to slow down at charity galas. He looked like money. He looked like power. He looked like a man who had already won. Couldn't sleep, Vivienne said. Luca poured himself scotch from the crystal decanter, the liquid catching light as it hit the glass. He didn't offer her any. He used to. 3 years ago, he would have poured 2 glasses automatically, handed her one, kissed her forehead. Now he drank alone. I have an early meeting, Luca said. Don't wait up. He left the room before she could respond. Vivienne watched him disappear down the hallway toward his office. The door closed with a soft, final click. A strip of gold light appeared beneath the door frame. She stood there in the dark for a long time. Then she heard the laughter. A woman's voice through speakerphone. Light, playful. The kind of laugh that said someone felt comfortable, safe, intimate. Luca's low chuckle followed. Vivienne moved closer without thinking. Her bare feet made no sound against the cold marble. She stopped 3 feet from his office door, holding her breath, listening. By the time she realizes the divorce is filed, Luca said calmly, every account will already be frozen. Vivienne's heart stopped. The prenup protects everything, he continued. The clubs, the properties, the offshore accounts, all transferred already. Silence. Then colder. She walks away with nothing. The man on the other end said something Vivienne couldn't make out. Luca laughed again. She still thinks I love her. Vivienne didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The woman's voice returned, muffled through the speaker. Something about timelines. Something about lawyers. Alessia will be perfect for the next phase, Luca said. Young, ambitious, better image. Vivienne turned around. She walked back to the bedroom with terrifying calm. No tears, no shaking hands, no rage. The wife of a mafia boss understood one thing better than most people. The moment emotion enters a war, you lose. She sat down at the desk near the window, opened her laptop, and stared into the glowing screen. Then she started working. 3 years earlier, Vivienne Hart had been one of Chicago's most respected financial strategists. Brilliant, disciplined, impossible to manipulate. She worked for a private equity firm that specialized in restructuring failing corporations. Her reputation was simple. If Vivienne Hart reviewed your financials, you either walked away clean or walked away broke. She met Luca DeLuca at a charity gala attended by politicians, judges, billionaires, and men dangerous enough to make all 3 nervous. Luca looked untouchable that night, tailored black suit, silver cufflinks, eyes like polished steel. Officially, he owned luxury hotels and import companies. Unofficially, everyone in Chicago knew Luca DeLuca controlled half the city's underground economy. You see systems the way other people see faces, he told her that night. Vivienne mistook the observation for admiration. In reality, Luca was evaluating an asset. They married 6 months later in a private ceremony overlooking the lake. Small guest list. No press. Luca insisted on privacy, which Vivienne appreciated at the time. Looking back, she realized he wanted control over the narrative. The first year felt like a dream. Luca took her to Paris, Milan, Barcelona. He bought her jewelry she never asked for. He introduced her to people whose names appeared in federal investigations. He also asked for her help. "Just look at this," he'd say, sliding financial documents across the table during dinner. "Tell me what you see." Vivienne saw everything. Laundering networks disguised as logistics chains. Investment structures built to fail intentionally. Offshore accounts connected through shell corporations registered in countries with no extradition treaties. She should have walked away. Instead, she fixed them. She reorganized his entire financial empire. She rebuilt failing systems. She created structures that saved Luca millions while keeping federal investigators away from his operations. And Luca watched her work with something close to worship. "You're brilliant," he told her once, kissing her neck while she reviewed spreadsheets at 3 in the morning. Vivienne leaned into him, exhausted, satisfied. She thought they were building something together. She didn't realize she was building the cage that would eventually trap her. The changes started slowly. Vivienne's access to certain accounts disappeared first. Luca explained it as a security measure. "Too many people watching," he said. "Safer this way." Then meetings stopped, including her. "You don't need the stress," Luca insisted. Then signatures. Documents she used to review personally now came pre-signed, pre-approved, already executed. "I handled it," Luca would say when she asked. Every explanation sounded reasonable. Every excuse felt hollow. Vivienne started noticing other things too. Late-night phone calls Luca took in another room. Weekend trips he claimed were business, but never invited her to join. A woman's name mentioned casually during conversations with his associates, Alessia. "Who's Alessia?" Vivienne asked once. Luca barely looked up from his phone. "New manager at the Northside Club. Smart girl. Ambitious." The way he said smart girl made Vivienne's stomach twist, but she didn't push. Not yet. Mafia wives learned early. Asking too many questions invited danger. So Vivienne watched instead. She noticed Alessia's name appearing more frequently in emails Luca left open on his laptop. She noticed the way Luca checked his phone constantly during dinner, smiling at messages he never shared. She noticed he stopped touching her the way he used to. The sex became routine, mechanical, something Luca performed out of obligation rather than desire. Vivienne lay awake afterward, staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly she became furniture in her own marriage. The night everything shattered started like any other. Luca came home late, poured himself scotch, disappeared into his office. Vivienne made tea she knew he wouldn't drink. She carried the tray down the hallway, intending to leave it outside his door like she always did. But she heard the laughter. And then she heard her name. "Vivienne's useful," Luca said through the speaker, "but she's become a liability." Vivienne froze. "The divorce needs to stay clean," Luca continued. "New image, new era. She no longer fits beside me." The man on the other end said something about timing. "Everything's already in motion," Luca replied. "By the time she realizes what's happening, every account will be frozen. The prenup covers the rest." Vivienne set the tray down silently on the marble floor. "She built half your empire," the other man said. "What if she fights back?" Luca laughed. "With what? I control everything now. The accounts, the properties, the offshore structures, all transferred. She signed documents she never read. She trusted me." Silence. Then Luca's voice turned colder. "She still thinks I love her." Vivienne walked back to the bedroom. She didn't slam doors, didn't throw things, didn't scream. She sat down at her laptop and opened a file she hadn't touched in months. A complete backup of every financial document she'd ever handled for Luca de Luca. Her hands didn't shake. Her breathing stayed steady. For the next hour, Vivienne worked with surgical precision. Every transfer archived, every shell corporation indexed, every offshore account documented. At 3:22 a.m., she found the first forged signature. Her name, her handwriting. A document transferring shared assets into a holding company she'd never heard of. Luca had forged her signature because he never expected his wife to become his enemy. He forgot something important about intelligent women. Once they stop loving you, they start noticing everything. Vivienne opened her phone and called the only attorney in Chicago ruthless enough to fight a mafia boss. Celine Kane answered on the second ring. "Do you know what time it is?" "I need a divorce attorney," Vivienne said. Silence. Then Celine's voice sharpened. "Are you safe?" "For now." "Where are you?" "Home." "Does he know you're calling me?" "No." "Keep it that way. I'll send a car in 30 minutes. Pack light. Bring documents if you can, but prioritize getting out safely." Vivienne looked toward the dark hallway leading to Luca's office. Light still glowed beneath his door. He had no idea she'd heard anything. "I'm not leaving yet," Vivienne said. "Vivienne, he doesn't know I know. That's my advantage." Celine exhaled slowly. "Then we work fast." "What do you have?" "Everything." Wolkheim's. For the next 3 hours, Vivienne built the case that would destroy Luca de Luca. She copied files onto encrypted drives. She photographed documents. She indexed every illegal transaction she'd ever helped structure, knowing federal investigators would find each one fascinating. The shared account Luca used to temporarily reroute hidden funds became the key. Legally, the money was still marital property. Moving it wasn't theft. It was protecting assets from criminal concealment. Celine walked her through every step over the phone. "Timestamp everything. Screen captures with dates visible. We need a paper trail showing you acted in response to fraud." "He forged my signature on at least 6 documents," Vivienne said. "That voids the prenup." "I know." "Good. Then let's bury him." At 5:30 a.m., Vivienne filed first. Divorce, fraud, financial concealment, forgery, evidence of racketeering activities. The documents hit the Cook County court system electronically, time-stamped, legally binding. By sunrise, the first dominoes inside Luca de Luca's empire were already falling, and Luca had absolutely no idea. Idouche Gambasi. He woke up at 8:30, showered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Vivienne pretended to sleep while he moved through the bedroom. She heard him pause near the bed, felt him looking at her. Then he kissed her forehead, soft, gentle, routine. "Don't wait up tonight," he said. Vivienne opened her eyes slowly, blinking like someone just waking. "Where are you going?" "Meetings. Probably won't be back until late." She looked directly into his eyes. "I won't wait up." Luca smiled, confident, untouchable, completely unaware that his empire was already bleeding internally. He left. Vivienne lay there for another 5 minutes, listening to the penthouse door close, the elevator descending, the silence that followed. Then she got up and started packing. Celine Kane's office occupied the 20th floor of a glass tower in the Loop. Vivienne arrived at 10, carrying a leather bag containing 3 encrypted drives, 200 pages of printed documents, and a handwritten list of every offshore account Luca thought he'd hidden successfully. Celine met her in the conference room, mid-40s, sharp suit, silver hair pulled back tight, eyes like a prosecuting attorney who'd never lost a case. "Show me everything," Celine said. Vivienne laid it out methodically. Financial statements, transfer records, forged signatures, shell corporations, offshore accounts, emails discussing illegal activities, text messages planning her erasure. Celine reviewed the documents in silence, occasionally making notes, her expression never changing. Finally, she looked up. "This is enough to destroy him." "Good. The prenup is void. The forged signatures establish fraud. The financial concealment opens the door for criminal investigation." "How long before he knows?" Celine checked her watch. "He should be getting the call right about—" Vivienne's phone started ringing. Luca's name flashed across the screen. She let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then she answered, her voice perfectly calm. "Hello? What the hell did you do?" Luca's voice no longer sounded untouchable. For the first time in years, the legendary Mafia Boss sounded afraid. "Good morning, Luca. The accounts are frozen." "Yes." "You moved my money. Our money. Vivienne corrected. Marital assets protected under emergency fraud review. Silence. Heavy breathing. Then rage. You have no idea who you're fighting. Vivienne looked across the conference table at Celine, who watched with cold satisfaction.
No, Vivienne said quietly. You forgot who built your empire. She hung up. Celine smiled. That felt good, didn't it? Not yet, Vivienne said. But it will.
The investigation detonated across Chicago within 48 hours. Federal agencies flagged offshore accounts connected to Luca's businesses. Financial crimes units reopened dormant files. The forged signatures destroyed the legal protections inside the prenup, which meant everything Vivienne built became fair game in the divorce. Then the media got involved. Someone leaked the story. Probably someone inside Luca's organization who saw an opportunity to distance themselves from a sinking ship. Mafia Boss's wife files for divorce, alleges fraud. Federal investigation targets. DeLuca Empire, Chicago kingpin faces financial crimes probe. Suddenly, the polished businessman image Luca spent years creating began collapsing publicly. Investors vanished overnight. Allies stopped returning calls. Politicians who once attended his charity galas suddenly had scheduling conflicts. And Alessia, the beautiful young replacement Luca planned to parade beside him into his next chapter, disappeared from public view the moment federal investigators began circling his clubs. Vivienne watched it all from Celine's office, drinking coffee, reviewing legal documents, feeling nothing. He's calling again, Celine said, nodding toward Vivienne's phone. 16 missed calls from Luca, 12 text messages, 3 voicemails. Vivienne didn't listen to any of them. He'll try to negotiate, Celine said. Let him. He'll threaten you. Let him try. Celine studied her carefully. You're not afraid of him anymore. Vivienne looked out the window at Chicago spread beneath gray November skies. I spent 3 years being afraid. I'm done. Cassis. The first settlement offer arrived 2 days later. Luca offered her $2 million and the penthouse. Vivienne rejected it immediately. The second offer came a week later, $5 million and 3 properties. Vivienne rejected that too. Luca's attorney called Celine directly. Your client is being unreasonable. Mr. DeLuca is offering more than the prenup requires. The prenup is void, Celine said flatly. Your client committed fraud. We're not negotiating from the prenup. We're negotiating from full marital asset division. That's insane. That's the law. The attorney lowered his voice. You know who you're dealing with. Some battles aren't worth winning. Celine smiled coldly. Tell your client if he threatens my client again, we release everything to federal prosecutors. Not just financial crimes. Everything. The line went dead. Celine looked at Vivienne. He's going to escalate. I know. Are you sure you want to keep pushing? Vivienne thought about the woman laughing through Luca's speakerphone. She thought about her name forged on documents. She thought about 3 years of being slowly erased from the empire she built. Yes, she said. I'm sure. The threats started small. A text message from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. Then another. Walk away while you still can. Vivienne showed them to Celine, who immediately contacted federal investigators. They're trying to intimidate you, Celine said, which means they're scared. Good. But the messages didn't stop. Someone slashed the tires on Vivienne's car outside Celine's office building. Someone left a dead rat on the doorstep of the temporary apartment Vivienne rented downtown. Someone called her father's house at 3 a.m, breathing into the phone, saying nothing. Vivienne documented everything, photographed everything, reported everything, and she didn't back down. They want you afraid, Celine said. They want you to fold. I won't. Even if it gets dangerous? Vivienne looked at her directly. I've been in danger since the day I married him. At least now I'm fighting back. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. One of Luca's former associates, a man named Vincent Carr, who'd been pushed out of the organization 2 years earlier, contacted Celine's office. I have information, he said. They met in a restaurant near O'Hare Airport. Vincent looked tired. Mid-50s, expensive suit that didn't fit right anymore. The kind of man who used to have power and was still adjusting to life without it. Luca's planning something, Vincent said. I don't know what, but people are nervous. What people? Celine asked. Everyone. The guys running the clubs, the ones handling shipping, even the attorneys. Why? Vincent looked at Vivienne. Because of you. You know too much, and now you're talking. Vivienne kept her expression neutral. I filed for divorce. That's all. That's everything, Vincent said. You built the structure hiding his empire. If federal investigators figure out how it works, they'll trace every dollar back to Luca. Then he should have thought about that before he decided to erase me. Vincent smiled grimly. He thought you'd stay quiet. Mafia wives always stay quiet. I'm not a mafia wife anymore. Vincent slid a manila envelope across the table. These are documents from internal meetings, discussions about moving assets, discussions about silencing liabilities. Your name comes up more than once. Celine opened the envelope carefully. Her expression darkened as she reviewed the contents. This is evidence of conspiracy, she said. Vincent nodded. And witness intimidation. And financial crimes. Everything you need. Why are you helping us? Vivienne asked. Vincent looked at her for a long moment. Because Luca destroyed my life when I was no longer useful. And I want to watch him burn. The final settlement negotiation happened in early December. Luca arrived at the conference room flanked by 3 attorneys. He looked thinner, older. The untouchable mafia boss now looked like a man barely holding his empire together. He stared at Vivienne across the table. She stared back. You're destroying everything we built, Luca said quietly. No, Vivienne replied. You tried to destroy me. I'm just making sure the record is complete. One of Luca's attorneys cleared his throat. Let's stay focused. We're here to negotiate a settlement. Celine laid out the terms. Full marital asset division, compensation for fraud, restitution for forged documents, legal fees. The number came to $43 million. Luca's lead attorney nearly choked. That's absurd. That's the law, Celine said calmly. Our client will never agree. Your client will agree, Celine interrupted, or we release everything to federal prosecutors. Financial crimes, racketeering, conspiracy, witness intimidation. She paused. How many years do you think that carries? Luca leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Vivienne met his eyes without flinching. Yes, it is. The room fell silent. Finally, Luca's lead attorney sighed. We need time to review. You have 72 hours, Celine said. After that, we file criminal referrals. They left. Luca paused at the door, looking back at Vivienne one last time. She didn't look away. He did. The settlement was finalized 3 days before Christmas. Vivienne sat in Celine's office reviewing the final documents, pages and pages of legal language that essentially said, Luca De Luca tried to erase his wife, and his wife erased him instead. You did it, Celine said. Vivienne signed the last page, her hand steady. We did it. What happens now? Vivienne looked out the window at Chicago glowing beneath winter clouds. Snow was starting to fall, soft and clean, covering the city like a reset. Now, she said quietly, I figure out who I am without him. But Vivienne didn't realize something important. Luca De Luca didn't just lose his empire. He lost his reputation, his power, his future. And men like Luca De Luca don't accept loss quietly. 2 weeks after the settlement was finalized, Vivienne received a phone call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Silence. Then a voice she didn't recognize. Luca says hello? The line went dead. Vivienne stood frozen in her apartment, staring at the phone, her heart pounding. She called Celine immediately. Someone just threatened me. What did they say? Vivienne repeated the message. Celine was quiet for a moment. Then, pack a bag. I'm sending security to your apartment. Don't leave until they arrive. Celine.
Vivienne, listen to me. You humiliated a very dangerous man. He's not going to let this go.
Vivienne looked around her small apartment, the place she'd rented specifically because it felt safe, anonymous, far from Luca's world. Suddenly it felt like a trap. "What do I do?" she asked. Celine's voice was firm. "You survive, and you keep fighting." The security team arrived 20 minutes later. 2 men in dark suits, former federal agents, the kind of protection money could buy. "You're coming with us," one of them said. "Where?" "Somewhere safe." Vivienne grabbed her laptop, her documents, a small bag of clothes. As she left the apartment, she looked back one last time at the life she'd started building. And she realized the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The safe house sat 40 minutes outside Chicago in a suburb that looked like every other suburb. Brick colonials with 2-car garages, basketball hoops and driveways, Christmas lights still hanging from gutters in mid-January. Vivienne arrived after midnight. The security team led her through a side entrance into a house that smelled like furniture polish and emptiness. Beige carpet, generic art on the walls, the kind of place designed to be forgettable. "You'll stay here until we assess the threat level," the taller agent said. His name was Marcus, former FBI, 40-something with gray at his temples and eyes that never stopped scanning. "How long?" Vivienne asked. "As long as it takes." The second agent, younger, quieter, introduced as Davis, checked the windows methodically, testing locks, adjusting blinds. "No one knows this location except us and your attorney. Keep it that way." Vivienne set her bag down on the couch. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up. "What if they find me anyway?" she asked. Marcus looked at her directly. "Then we get you somewhere else." He didn't say before they kill you, but Vivienne heard it anyway. They left her alone around 1 in the morning. Marcus stationed himself in a car outside. Davis took the first floor. Vivienne climbed the stairs to a bedroom that looked like a hotel room. Neutral walls, plain bedding, nothing personal. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her phone. 16 missed calls from Celine. 3 text messages from her father asking if she was okay. 1 voicemail from a blocked number. Vivienne played the voicemail. Static. Breathing. Then a voice she didn't recognize. "You should have stayed quiet." The line went dead. Vivienne deleted the message, turned off her phone, and lay back on the bed fully clothed. She didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling and wondered how many ways a person could regret their entire life. Morning came gray and cold. Vivienne woke up to the sound of Marcus moving through the house downstairs. She checked her phone. 7 messages from Celine, all variations of "call me immediately." She dialed. Celine answered before the first ring finished. "Where are you?" "Safe house, like you said." "Good. Stay there. Don't leave. Don't tell anyone where you are." "What's happening?" Celine exhaled slowly. "Luca's attorney called this morning. They want to renegotiate the settlement." Vivienne sat up. "We already finalized everything. They're claiming duress, coercion. They want the 43 million reduced to 15. That's insane." "That's desperation," Celine said. "The federal investigation is tightening. Luca's losing allies. He needs cash to pay attorneys, and you took most of his liquid assets." "Good." "Vivienne, listen to me. Desperate men do dangerous things. The phone call you received last night wasn't random. Luca's sending a message." Vivienne looked out the window at the quiet suburban street. A woman jogged past, pushing a stroller. A landscaping truck pulled into a driveway across the street. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. "What message?" Vivienne asked. "That he can still reach you." The first crack appeared that afternoon. Marcus received a phone call around 3. Vivienne heard him talking in the kitchen, his voice low and tense. When he came upstairs, his expression had changed. "We have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" "Someone accessed your father's medical records at Northwestern Memorial. They pulled files from the billing department 2 hours ago." Vivienne's blood went cold. "Who?" "We don't know yet. But whoever did it knew exactly where to look." "My father has nothing to do with this." "They're not after your father," Marcus said quietly. "They're showing you they can get to him." Vivienne stood up, pacing. Her father was 73 years old, retired, living in a small house in Oak Park with a nurse who checked on him twice a week because his heart wasn't strong anymore. I need to call him, she said. No, any contact puts him at risk. He's my father. Marcus's voice hardened, and calling him tells Luca's people exactly where your head is right now, that you're scared, that you're vulnerable. I am vulnerable. Then don't let them see it. Vivienne wanted to scream. Instead, she sat down on the couch and pressed her palms against her eyes until colors bloomed in the darkness. What do I do? She asked. You wait. We're moving him to a secure location tonight. He won't know why. We'll tell him it's precautionary medical monitoring. He'll ask questions. Let him. Better he's confused than dead. The word hung in the air like smoke. Dead. Vivienne realized she'd been naive. She thought exposing Luca's empire would destroy him cleanly, legally, through courts and investigators. She forgot that men like Luca DeLuca didn't lose through paperwork. They lost through blood. Chats. That night, Vivienne couldn't eat. Davis brought takeout from a Chinese restaurant, fried rice, orange chicken, egg rolls. The smell made her nauseous. You need to eat something, Davis said. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. Vivienne forced down half a container of rice, chewing mechanically, tasting nothing. Marcus was on the phone again in the other room. Vivienne heard fragments. Secured location, no contact, minimal exposure. When he came back, his expression was worse. Your father's safe, he said, but we have another issue. What now? Celine's office was broken into tonight. Someone bypassed security, went through file cabinets, disabled cameras. Did they take anything? Not that we can tell, but they left something. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Vivienne a photograph. A single sheet of paper on Celine's desk. One sentence typed in the center. You're next. Vivienne's hands started shaking again. They're threatening Celine now? They're threatening everyone close to you. It's a tactic. They want you isolated, scared, willing to negotiate. I won't. Marcus studied her carefully. You sure about that? Vivienne met his eyes. I spent 3 years being afraid. I'm not going back. Even if people get hurt? The question hit her like a fist. Vivienne thought about her father in some secure facility, confused and frightened. She thought about Celine, ruthless, brilliant Celine, suddenly vulnerable because she'd agreed to help. I didn't ask for this, Vivienne said quietly. No, Marcus agreed, but you started it. The second crack came 2 days later. Vincent Carr, the former associate who'd provided documents exposing Luca's conspiracy, was found dead in his apartment. Heart attack, the initial report said. But Celine called Vivienne immediately. Vincent didn't have heart problems. He was 54 years old, healthy, worked out 5 days a week. You think Luca killed him? I think Vincent became a liability the moment he helped you. And Luca eliminates liabilities. Vivienne felt something cold settle in her chest. Vincent had a family. A wife and 2 daughters. They're being moved into protective custody. Will that be enough? Celine didn't answer immediately. Then, I don't know. That night, Vivienne dreamed about Vincent's face across the table at the airport restaurant. The tired eyes, the grim smile. I want to watch him burn. She woke up at 4 a.m, sweating, heart pounding. Vincent was dead because he'd helped her. How many more people would die before this ended? What? The pressure kept building. Marcus moved Vivienne to a second safe house after a suspicious car appeared on the street outside the first location. Different suburb, different setup, same suffocating feeling of being trapped. Celine stopped visiting in person. Too risky. They communicated through encrypted messages and phone calls from burner numbers that changed daily. The federal investigation is accelerating, Celine said during one call. They're close to filing charges. Money laundering, racketeering, tax evasion. Luca's looking at 20 years minimum. Good. But here's the problem. If Luca goes down, he's taking people with him. And right now, you're the reason he's going down. So what are you saying? I'm saying be ready for him to make a move. Something desperate. Vivienne looked out the window at another anonymous street. Like what? I don't know. But men like Luca don't go to prison quietly. Marchats. The offer came a week later. Luca's attorney called Celine with a new proposal. Full settlement honored, all $43 million, immediate payment in exchange for one condition. What condition? Celine asked. Mrs. DeLuca signs a non-disclosure agreement. No testimony, no cooperation with federal investigators. Complete silence about everything she knows. Celine relayed the offer to Vivienne. They were sitting in the safe house kitchen. Snow fell outside. Vivienne had been isolated for 18 days now. No contact with her father, no contact with anyone except Celine, Marcus, and Davis. He wants to buy my silence, Vivienne said. Yes. For $43 million. Plus your safety. He's implying the threats stop if you sign. Vivienne stared at her coffee. Cold now. She hadn't drunk any of it. And if I don't sign? Celine's expression darkened. Then this keeps escalating. More threats? Worse than threats. Vivienne looked up. You think he'll kill me? Celine didn't answer immediately. Then, I think he's running out of options, and desperate men make fatal decisions. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and wind against the windows. I can't sign that, Vivienne said finally. Why not? Because if I stay silent, federal investigators lose their key witness. Luca walks. Everything I exposed gets buried. Vincent died for nothing. Vincent's already dead. You're still alive. Let's keep it that way. Vivienne shook her head. I spent 3 years being complicit in Luca's empire. I helped build the structure that hid his crimes. If I take his money and disappear, I'm still complicit. You were his wife. You didn't have a choice. I did have a choice. I chose to help him. I chose to look the other way. I chose money and comfort over integrity. Vivienne's voice cracked. I can't choose that again. Celine studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're saying. If you reject this offer, Luca has no reason to keep you alive. I know. And you're still saying no? I'm saying no. Celine closed her laptop slowly. Then we prepare for war. Mas. The breaking point came 3 days later. Marcus received a call around midnight. Vivienne heard his voice downstairs, sharp and urgent. She came down to find him pacing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, his expression murderous. What happened? Vivienne asked when he hung up. Marcus turned to face her. They took Celine. Vivienne's world tilted. What? She left her office tonight around 11. Security footage shows a van pulling up beside her car. 3 men. They forced her inside. Van disappeared. Where is she? We don't know. Have they made demands? Not yet. Vivienne sat down heavily on the couch. Her breathing came in short, sharp bursts. This is my fault. This is Luca's fault. I should have signed the NDA. I should have taken the money. I should have... You should have nothing, Marcus interrupted. Celine made her own choices. She knew the risks. She took this case because I asked her to. She took this case because Luca DeLuca is a criminal and she wanted to destroy him. Don't take that away from her by making this about guilt. Vivienne looked up. What do we do? Marcus's jaw tightened. We wait for contact. They took her for a reason. They'll reach out. The call came 20 minutes later. Unknown number. Marcus put it on speaker. Luca's voice came through, calm and cold. I assume you've heard. Vivienne's hands clenched into fists. Where is she? Safe. For now. What do you want? The same thing I wanted a week ago. Your signature on the NDA. Your silence. Your disappearance. And if I refuse? Then your attorney dies. Slowly, painfully. And I'll make sure you hear every second of it. Vivienne closed her eyes. You won't get away with this. Luca laughed. I already have. No one knows where she is. No one will find her unless I allow it. You took my empire, Vivienne. Now I'm taking the only thing you have left. The people who helped you. If you hurt her, you'll what? Call the police? The FBI? They can't find me. No one can. His voice dropped lower. But I can always find you. The line went dead. Vivienne looked at Marcus. We have to get her back. We will. How? Marcus's expression was grim. By giving Luca what he wants. The plan came together over the next 6 hours. Vivienne would agree to sign the NDA. They'd arrange a meeting, neutral location, public enough to feel safe, private enough for Luca to believe he'd won. He'll bring Celine to prove she's alive, Marcus said. That's when we move. Move how? Vivienne asked. Federal agents will be positioned around the meeting point. The moment Celine is clear, they arrest Luca. What if he doesn't bring her? Then we don't have a plan B. Davis spoke up from the corner. This is insane! You're walking into a trap! We don't have another option, Marcus said. We have the option of keeping Mrs. DeLuca alive and letting the FBI handle this through proper channels. Proper channels take time. Celine doesn't have time. Davis looked at Vivienne. You understand you might die doing this. I understand. And you're still willing to go? Vivienne thought about Celine answering her phone at 2 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Thought about her cold smile across the conference table. Thought about her voice saying then, let's bury him. Yes, Vivienne said. I'm still willing. When the meeting was set for the following night, an abandoned warehouse near the industrial waterfront. The kind of place movies used because it looked exactly like what it was, a place where bad things happened to people who made poor choices. Marcus drove. Davis followed in a second vehicle. Vivienne sat in the passenger seat wearing a wire so thin she couldn't feel it against her skin. You don't have to do this, Marcus said as they approached the location. Yes, I do. If anything feels wrong, everything feels wrong. Marcus almost smiled. Fair point. But if you get a chance to run, run. Don't wait. Don't think. Just move. What about Celine? We'll get her out. That's not your job. They pulled into the warehouse lot at exactly midnight. 3 other cars were already there, black SUVs with tinted windows. Luca's people. Vivienne stepped out into freezing wind coming off the lake. Her legs felt weak. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The warehouse door opened. Luca stepped out. He looked different than Vivienne remembered. Thinner, harder. The polished businessman veneer had cracked, revealing something cold and reptilian underneath. Vivienne? He said. You came. Where's Celine? Luca gestured toward the warehouse. Inside. Alive. For now. I want to see her first. You'll see her when you sign. That wasn't the deal. Luca smiled. The deal is whatever I say it is. Marcus tensed beside Vivienne, his hand moving toward his concealed weapon. Luca noticed. Tell your guard dog to relax. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Then what do you want? Vivienne asked. I want you to understand something. Luca stepped closer. You took my empire, my reputation, my future. But you forgot one important detail. What? You were always mine to destroy. He nodded toward the SUVs. Doors opened. 6 men stepped out, armed. Marcus grabbed Vivienne's arm. Get back in the car. Now. But before they could move, headlights flooded the lot from 3 different directions. Federal vehicles. Unmarked but unmistakable. Agents poured out, weapons drawn, voices shouting commands. Luca's men scattered. Gunfire erupted. Marcus shoved Vivienne behind the car, shielding her with his body as bullets shattered glass and ricocheted off metal. Stay down, he yelled. Vivienne crouched low, hands over her head, ears ringing from the sound of weapons discharging in enclosed space. The firefight lasted less than 2 minutes, but felt like hours. When the shooting stopped, Vivienne looked up to see federal agents surrounding Luca, forcing him to his knees, handcuffs snapping closed around his wrists. Luca looked directly at Vivienne as they dragged him toward a vehicle. He smiled. Not the charming smile from charity galas, not the confident smile from their wedding day, the smile of a man who believed he'd already won. Where's Celine? Vivienne shouted. One of the agents approached. We're searching the warehouse now. Is she alive? The agent's expression was carefully neutral. We're searching the warehouse now. Marcus pulled Vivienne to her feet. Come on, let them work. But Vivienne couldn't move. She stood there watching federal agents swarm the building, watching Luca disappear into a vehicle, watching everything that was supposed to be the ending feel like the beginning of something worse. 10 minutes later, an agent emerged from the warehouse. His face was pale. He walked directly to the lead investigator and whispered something. The investigator's expression darkened. He looked at Vivienne. Then he shook his head. Vivienne's legs gave out. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "We don't know anything yet," Marcus said. But they did know. They found Celine inside the warehouse, dead, shot twice in the chest, sometime in the last 12 hours. Before Luca even made the call arranging the meeting, he'd killed her already. The negotiation had been theater. The meeting had been revenge. Luca never intended to let Celine live. He just wanted Vivienne to know she'd failed to save her. But Vivienne sat in the back of Marcus's car while crime scene investigators processed the warehouse. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't move. She just stared through the windshield at the building where her attorney, her friend, had died because Vivienne had asked for help. Marcus sat beside her in silence. Finally, he spoke. "This wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was." Luca pulled the trigger. "I asked Celine to take the case. I refused the settlement. I kept pushing even after the threats started." Vivienne's voice cracked. "She died because of me. She died because she chose to fight a dangerous man. That was her choice, not yours." Vivienne turned to look at him. "How many more people have to die before I stop?" Marcus met her eyes. "How many more people have to die if you do stop?" The question hung between them. Before Vivienne could answer, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. She opened it. A photograph appeared. Her father, sitting in what looked like a hospital room, alive. But next to him, barely visible in the frame, stood a man Vivienne didn't recognize. The message beneath the photo read, "One signature," or "He's next." Vivienne's hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Marcus looked at the screen. Jesus Christ. "They have my father," Vivienne whispered. "The facility was supposed to be secure." It wasn't secure enough. Another message came through. "You have 24 hours. Sign the NDA. Disappear. Or everyone you love dies like Celine." Vivienne stared at the photo of her father, his confused expression, his gray hair, his thin hospital gown, the man who'd raised her alone after her mother died, the man who'd taught her to fight back when life knocked her down, the man who had no idea his daughter's war had just put a target on his chest. Marcus's voice was quiet. "What do you want to do?" Vivienne looked at the warehouse where Celine's body was being photographed and documented and turned into evidence. She thought about Vincent Carr dead in his apartment. She thought about her father sitting in that hospital room with a killer standing just out of frame. She thought about 3 years of being afraid, 3 years of being controlled, 3 years of being erased. And she realized something. Luca wanted her to break. He wanted her isolated, terrified, compliant. He wanted the brilliant woman who'd built his empire to crumble under the weight of guilt and fear. He wanted to win. Vivienne looked at Marcus. Her voice came out steady, cold, final. "I want to destroy him completely." Marcus stared at her. "Even if it costs you everything?" "It already has." "Vivienne, he killed Celine. He's threatening my father. He's betting I'll sacrifice everything to keep people safe." Her hand stopped shaking. "But if I sign that NDA, Luca walks. The investigation ends. Every crime he committed gets buried. And eventually he'll kill me anyway because I know too much." "So what's the alternative?" Vivienne's expression turned to stone. "I testify. I give federal prosecutors everything. I make sure Luca DeLuca spends the rest of his life in prison." She paused. "And then I make him watch while I burn his empire to ashes." "That won't bring Celine back." "No, but it'll make sure she didn't die for nothing." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You understand what you're committing to. Full cooperation means witness protection, new identity. You disappear, forever." "I know." "Your father gets protected, new location, new identity. We don't see each other again." "That's a life sentence." "So is being afraid." Vivienne looked back at the warehouse one last time. Somewhere inside, Celine Kane's body lay cold under evidence tarps and camera flashes. Brilliant. Ruthless. Dead at 52 because she'd agreed to help. Vivienne made a promise to that body. "This ends with Luca in a cell. Or it ends with me dead. Either way, the fear stops tonight." She looked at Marcus. Make the call. Tell the prosecutors I'll testify to everything. Marcus studied her face, the exhaustion, the grief, the absolute refusal to break. Then he pulled out his phone. You're sure about this? Vivienne thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago. Brilliant, disciplined, impossible to manipulate. She'd lost that woman somewhere inside Luca's empire. Time to find her again. Yes, she said. I'm sure. Marcus dialed. While he talked to federal prosecutors, Vivienne stared at her phone. The photo of her father stared back. 24 hours. That's all the time she had to make the most dangerous decision of her life. Sign the NDA and let a killer walk free, or testify and lose everything she had left. Vivienne closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the decision was already made. She texted back a single word, no. Then she turned off her phone, looked at Marcus, and said the 5 words that would either save her life or end it. Let's finish this right now. The federal building looked like every other government structure in Chicago. Concrete, glass, security checkpoints that moved slower than death itself. Vivienne walked through metal detectors at 6 in the morning with Marcus beside her and federal marshals flanking both sides. She wore the same clothes from the night before. Her hair hung unwashed. Dark circles carved shadows beneath her eyes. She looked like someone who'd been awake for 30 hours straight, because she had been. The lead prosecutor met them on the 14th floor. Her name was Catherine Reeves, mid-50s, steel gray suit, the kind of face that had seen every lie humanity could construct and stopped believing any of them. Mrs. DeLuca, Catherine said, extending her hand. Vivienne shook it. The woman's grip was firm, cold, final. Thank you for coming in. I know the last 24 hours have been difficult. Difficult was one word for it. Catherine led them into a conference room. Long table, windows overlooking the city, recording equipment already set up. Before we begin, Catherine said, I need to make sure you understand what full cooperation means. I understand. You'll testify to everything, financial crimes, money laundering, racketeering, every detail of your husband's operation. Ex-husband, Vivienne corrected quietly. Ex-husband, Catherine amended. In exchange, we offer witness protection. New identity, relocation. Your father will be included in the protection program. And Luca goes to prison. If your testimony holds up, yes, 20 years minimum, possibly life. Vivienne looked out the window at Chicago waking up beneath gray January skies. Somewhere out there, Luca sat in a holding cell, probably already working on bail, probably already planning his next move. When do we start? Vivienne asked. Catherine opened her briefcase, pulling out binders thick enough to stop bullets. Right now. The deposition lasted 6 hours. Catherine walked Vivienne through every financial transaction she'd ever handled for Luca, every shell corporation, every offshore account, every forged document. Tell me about the Cayman accounts, Catherine said. Vivienne recited the account numbers from memory. 7 accounts registered under fake companies. Luca moved money through them quarterly to avoid detection patterns. How much? Approximately 40 million over 3 years. Catherine made notes. And you facilitated these transfers? Yes? Willingly. Vivienne hesitated. At first, I didn't know they were illegal. By the time I understood what I was doing, I was already complicit. But you continued. Yes. Why? Vivienne looked directly at Catherine. Because I was afraid. And because I loved him. And now? Now I'm testifying against him. Catherine's expression didn't change. Walk me through the Prague accounts. 4 more hours of this. Names, dates, amounts, transfers. Vivienne's voice grew hoarse but never stopped. She recited everything she'd memorized during 3 years of building Luca's empire. Every crime, every violation, every piece of evidence prosecutors needed to bury him. At noon, Catherine called a break. Marcus brought Vivienne coffee. She wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling warmth seep into her fingers for the first time in hours. You're doing good, Marcus said. I'm destroying my life. You're saving it. Vivienne didn't argue. She just drank coffee that tasted like cardboard and stared at the conference table covered in evidence of her own complicity. Catherine returned 15 minutes later with another prosecutor, younger, male, carrying additional files. This is Daniel Morrison, Catherine said. He'll be handling the racketeering charges. Daniel nodded at Vivienne. I need to ask about Vincent Carr.
Vivienne's stomach clenched. What about him? You met with him 3 weeks ago. He provided documents exposing your husband's conspiracy. Yes. What was his motivation? Revenge. Luca destroyed his career. Vincent wanted to watch him burn. And now Vincent's dead. Vivienne set her coffee down carefully. Yes. Daniel flipped through his files. The medical examiner found potassium chloride in his system. Injected. Caused cardiac arrest that looked natural. So, Luca killed him.
We believe so. But we need to establish motive. Why would your husband consider Vincent a threat? Because Vincent knew too much. He'd been inside Luca's operation for 15 years. He understood how everything worked. Like you. The words hung in the air. Vivienne looked at Daniel. Are you asking if I'm in danger? I'm asking if you understand the pattern. Everyone who helps you ends up dead. Marcus stood up. That's out of line. It's a fact, Daniel said flatly. Vincent Carr, Celine Kane. How many more people die before Mrs. DeLuca realizes she's the common denominator? That's enough, Catherine said sharply. But Daniel kept going. Your husband isn't targeting random people. He's targeting anyone who gets close to his wife, which means the moment you enter witness protection, everyone you've ever known becomes a potential victim. Vivienne's hands started shaking. What are you saying? I'm saying witness protection keeps you alive, but it doesn't keep everyone else alive. Catherine grabbed Daniel's arm. Outside. Now. They left. Vivienne sat frozen in her chair while Marcus paced behind her. He's wrong, Marcus said. Luca's killing people to intimidate you, not because you know them. What's the difference? Vivienne asked. They're still dead. The difference is motive. Luca's eliminating threats. Once you testify, you're no longer a threat you can negotiate with. You become evidence, and evidence is harder to eliminate. Unless he eliminates me. Which is why witness protection exists. Vivienne closed her eyes. Her head pounded. Her throat ached. Every muscle in her body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. I can't do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. People keep dying because of me. People keep dying because of Luca. Don't give him credit for your choices. Vivienne looked up at Marcus. How do you do this? How do you watch people destroy their lives and stay so calm? I don't stay calm, Marcus said. I just don't let them see me break. Catherine returned alone 20 minutes later. Daniel's off the case, she said. What he said was inappropriate. Was it wrong? Vivienne asked. Catherine sat down heavily. No, but it wasn't helpful. So Luca will keep killing people. Until he's in prison? Yes, that's the reality. Catherine leaned forward. Which is why we need your testimony airtight. No gaps, no contradictions. Nothing his defense can exploit. What happens to my father? He's being moved to a secure medical facility under federal protection. New name, new records. He'll be told you're cooperating with an investigation, but not the details. When can I see him? You can't. Contact creates risk. Vivienne felt something crack inside her chest. So I testify, he disappears, and I never see him again. That's witness protection. That's prison. Catherine's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't fair, but it's the only way to keep both of you alive. Vivienne stood up, walking to the window. Chicago stretched out below. The city she'd lived in her entire life. The place she'd met Luca. The place she'd built his empire. The place that would erase her the moment she entered protection. I need air, she said. We still have 4 hours of testimony. I need air. Catherine looked at Marcus, who nodded. I'll take her. They rode the elevator down in silence. Marcus led Vivienne outside through a side exit into a concrete courtyard surrounded by security fencing. Cold wind cut through her jacket. She didn't care. She just breathed. Marcus stood nearby, scanning the courtyard automatically, his hand resting near his concealed weapon. You think I'm making a mistake, Vivienne said. I think you're making the only choice you have. That's not an answer. Marcus looked at her. You want honesty? Please. I think you're brave and stupid in equal measure. Brave because you're fighting back. Stupid because you think destroying Luca will fix what he broke inside you. And will it? No, but it might let you sleep again. Vivienne almost laughed. I haven't slept in 3 weeks. I know. How can you tell? Because I haven't slept in 3 weeks either. They stood there in silence while wind rattled chain-link fencing and distant traffic hummed. Finally, Vivienne spoke. What happens if I don't testify? Luca walks, eventually. And if I do testify? He goes to prison, and you disappear. Those are both terrible options. Welcome to federal witness protection. Vivienne turned to face him. Have you ever protected someone who regretted testifying? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Once. What happened? She changed her mind halfway through the trial, recanted her testimony, claimed she'd been coerced. Was she? No, she was just terrified. Did they protect her anyway? Marcus's expression darkened. She didn't make it to protection. Her husband found her first. Vivienne's blood went cold. He killed her? 3 days after she recanted, made it look like suicide. Jesus. That's why you can't change your mind, Marcus said. Once you start testifying, you finish, no matter what. Vivienne looked back up at the federal building. Somewhere on the 14th floor, Catherine Reeves sat, surrounded by evidence waiting to destroy Luca de Luca. All Vivienne had to do was walk back inside and finish what she'd started. Simple. Except nothing about this was simple anymore. I'm ready, she said. They rode the elevator back up. The afternoon session focused on Luca's violent associates. Catherine showed Vivienne photographs. Do you recognize these men? Vivienne studied the faces. Hard eyes, expensive suits, the kind of men who smiled at charity galas and broke bones in basements. That's Anton Volkov, she said, pointing. Luca's enforcer, Russian, handles problems that can't be solved legally. What kind of problems? Missing shipments, uncooperative business partners, witnesses. Witnesses? Vivienne met Catherine's eyes. People who see things they shouldn't. Like you. Like me. Catherine made notes. What about this man? Another photograph, younger, cold smile. Vivienne's stomach turned. Marcus Brennan, she said quietly. Catherine's pen stopped moving. The security consultant protecting you? No, different Marcus. This one worked directly for Luca. Disappeared about 6 months ago. Do you know where he went? Lake Michigan, probably. Luca doesn't leave loose ends. Catherine studied the photograph for a long moment. Then she closed the file. Let's take a break. But they didn't break. Instead, Catherine made a phone call. Vivienne sat in the conference room with Marcus, her Marcus, the protection specialist, while Catherine spoke in low, urgent tones in the hallway. Something's wrong, Vivienne said. Marcus checked his phone. I'm sure it's nothing. You're a terrible liar. Occupational hazard. 5 minutes later, Catherine returned with Daniel Morrison and 2 federal agents Vivienne hadn't seen before. Mrs. DeLuca, Catherine said, I need you to answer a question honestly. Okay. How well do you know your protection specialist? Vivienne looked at Marcus. He sat very still, his expression carefully neutral. What do you mean? Vivienne asked. Marcus Brennan, the man sitting next to you. How did you meet him? Celine hired him. He's former FBI. Is he? The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Marcus stood up slowly. What's this about? One of the federal agents moved toward the door, blocking the exit. Catherine kept her eyes on Vivienne. We ran background checks on everyone in your protection detail. Standard procedure. And? Marcus Brennan worked for the FBI. That part is true. But he left under investigation 5 years ago. Vivienne's heart started hammering. Investigation for what? Accepting bribes from organized crime. Marcus's jaw tightened. Those charges were dropped. Dropped, Catherine agreed. Not disproven. What are you saying? Vivienne asked. Catherine slid a folder across the table. We found financial records,
Transfers from an offshore account registered to one of your husband's shell corporations, paid to a consulting firm owned by Marcus Brennan. Vivienne opened the folder with shaking hands. Bank statements, wire transfers, dates going back 6 months, payments totaling $300,000, all from Luca's companies, all to Marcus. She looked up at the man who'd been protecting her for 3 weeks. "Tell me this isn't real," she whispered. Marcus's expression didn't change. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" "I can explain. Explain why you took money from my husband?" "I didn't take money from your husband. I took money from a company that contracts security services." "Luca's company." "I didn't know that when I accepted the contract." "Bullshit," Daniel said. "You knew exactly who you were working for." Marcus turned on him. "I ran background on the company, clean corporate structure, legitimate business license. Nothing connected it to DeLuca." "Because that's how money laundering works," Daniel shot back. "The whole point is hiding connections." Vivienne stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "How long have you been working for him?" "I'm not working for him." "How long?" Marcus looked at her directly. "The contract started 6 months ago, before I ever met you, before Celine hired me." "So Celine didn't hire you?" "She thought she did. But Luca recommended me." The room spun. Vivienne grabbed the table to steady herself. "You've been reporting to him this entire time," she said. "No. Where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm planning. No. He knew about every safe house because you told him." "That's not—" "He found my father because you gave him the location." Marcus's face went pale. "I would never—" "Then explain the money!" Vivienne screamed. "Explain why Luca's company paid you $300,000. Silence. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the federal agents blocking the door, then quietly, "It was insurance." "What?" "Luca paid me to monitor you, to report your movements, to make sure you didn't do anything stupid." Marcus's voice cracked. "But I stopped reporting after the first week." "Why?" "Because I realized what he was doing to you, and I couldn't be part of it." "So you just kept the money?" "I kept the money and protected you anyway. The safe houses, the security, everything I did was real." Vivienne laughed bitterly. "Nothing you did was real. You were Luca's inside man the entire time." "I was trying to keep you alive by lying to me, by giving Luca exactly what he expected until I could get you somewhere safe." Catherine stepped forward. "Mr. Brennan, you need to come with us." Marcus didn't move. "I didn't betray her. You took money from a criminal organization to protect her from that organization. That's not how this works." The federal agents moved in. One grabbed Marcus's arm. He pulled away instinctively, and suddenly 3 more agents were in the room with weapons drawn. "Don't move!" someone shouted. Marcus raised his hands. "I'm not resisting." "On the ground! Now!" They forced him down. Handcuffs snapped closed. Vivienne watched the man who'd saved her life 3 times get arrested like a common criminal. "Wait," she said. "Wait, you don't understand." "Mrs. DeLuca," Catherine said firmly. "Step back. He protected me. He saved me." "He was paid by your husband." "But he stopped working for Luca." "We only have his word for that." They dragged Marcus to his feet. He looked at Vivienne one last time. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For not telling you sooner." Then they took him away. But Vivienne stood alone in the conference room. Catherine sat across from her, reviewing files, making notes, acting like the world hadn't just collapsed. "I need to go home," Vivienne said. "You don't have a home. Not anymore." "Then wherever I'm staying." "We're moving you to a new location. Clearly the previous security was compromised." "Clearly." Catherine looked up. "I know this is difficult." "Difficult?" Vivienne laughed. "The man protecting me was working for my husband. My attorney is dead. My father is in hiding. And I'm testifying against a man who has already killed 2 people to silence me. Difficult doesn't even begin to cover it. Which is why we need to finish your testimony today, before anything else goes wrong." "What else could possibly go wrong?" Catherine's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Her expression changed. "What?" Vivienne asked.
We have a situation.
What kind of situation? Catherine stood up, gathering files quickly. Your husband made bail. Vivienne's blood turned to ice. That's impossible. His attorneys argued pretrial release, posted bond. He's out. When? 20 minutes ago. Where is he? We don't know yet. Vivienne grabbed her jacket. I need to leave. Right now. We have agents stationed.
I don't care about agents. Everyone protecting me either ends up dead or arrested. I'm done trusting federal protection. Mrs. DeLuca, my name is Vivienne Hart, she said coldly. I stopped being Mrs. DeLuca the day I filed for divorce, and I'm walking out of this building right now. Catherine moved to block her path. If you leave, you lose protection. I already lost protection the moment Marcus turned out to be Luca's plant. We don't know that for certain.
I know it, Vivienne said. And right now the only person I trust is myself. She pushed past Catherine and walked out of the conference room. Federal agents called after her. Catherine shouted something about contempt charges. Vivienne didn't care. She rode the elevator down alone, walked through security, and stepped out into freezing January air. Chicago spread around her, millions of people, thousands of buildings, nowhere safe to hide. Somewhere in this city, Luca DeLuca was free. Somewhere in this city, he was planning his next move, and Vivienne had just walked away from the only protection keeping her alive. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, text message. She opened it. A photograph appeared. Her father's hospital room. Empty. Bed unmade. Medical equipment disconnected. The message beneath read, He's with me now. You have 1 hour. Come alone or he dies. An address followed. Warehouse District, South Side. The same area where Celine died. Vivienne's hand shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. Another message came through. Bring the NDA. Sign it or watch him bleed. Vivienne looked back at the federal building. She could go back inside. Tell Catherine. Let agents handle it. But agents hadn't saved Celine, and Marcus had been feeding information to Luca for months, which meant federal protection was compromised, which meant her father was already dead unless she did exactly what Luca wanted. Vivienne checked her watch. 1 hour. She hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. Vivienne gave him the address. Then she texted back one word. Coming. The driver pulled into traffic. Vivienne stared out the window at the city blurring past, knowing she was making the worst decision of her life. But what choice did she have? Luca held every card. He had her father. He had federal protection compromised. He had money, power, and connections that reached into every corner of Chicago. All Vivienne had was rage and a desperate need to keep the last person she loved alive. The cab drove south through industrial streets that grew emptier with every mile. Vivienne's phone buzzed again. Another message. 45 minutes. She looked at the driver. Can you go faster? I'm already speeding. Go faster anyway. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a warehouse complex surrounded by chain-link fencing. Half the buildings looked abandoned. Broken windows, graffiti, the smell of rust and decay. Vivienne paid the driver with cash. Wait here. Lady, I'm not waiting in this neighborhood. Please, I'll pay you $500 to wait 15 minutes. The driver looked at her like she was insane. Then he looked at the cash. 15 minutes, he said. Not a second longer. Vivienne walked through the front gate. The warehouse loomed ahead, concrete and steel, windows boarded up, door hanging half open. She pushed it wider and stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her immediately. Then a light flickered on. Single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Her father sat tied to a chair in the center of the room, duct tape across his mouth, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. And standing behind him, holding a gun pressed against the back of his head, was Alessia Moretti. Not Luca. Alessia. The beautiful young woman Luca had been grooming to replace Vivienne. 26 years old with perfect skin and dead eyes. Vivienne froze in the doorway. Close it, Alessia said. Vivienne pushed the door shut. The sound echoed through the empty warehouse like a coffin lid slamming. Where's Luca? Vivienne asked. Busy, Alessia smiled. He sends his regards.
Vivienne's father made muffled sounds behind the duct tape. His eyes were wide with terror. Blood from the cut above his eyebrow had dried in a dark line down his face. "Let him go," Vivienne said. "Sign the NDA first." "I need to see that he's okay." Alessia pressed the gun harder against her father's skull. "He's alive. That's all you need to know." Vivienne took a step forward. "I'm not signing anything until you remove that gun." "You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. If you kill him, I have no reason to sign, which means Luca gets nothing." Alessia's smile widened. "You think this is about the NDA? Isn't it? The NDA is just paperwork. This is about teaching you a lesson." Vivienne's pulse hammered in her throat. "What lesson?" "That you don't walk away from Luca DeLuca. Ever." She pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Vivienne screamed, but the bullet didn't hit her father. It hit the concrete floor 6 inches from the chair, sending up a spray of dust and debris. Her father jerked violently, trying to pull away from the restraints. Muffled cries of terror came from behind the duct tape. Alessia laughed. "See? He's fine. For now." Vivienne's legs almost gave out. She grabbed the doorframe to stay upright. "You're insane." "I'm effective." Alessia circled around the chair, keeping the gun trained on Vivienne's father. "Do you know what Luca told me about you? I don't care. He said you were brilliant, disciplined, impossible to break." Alessia stopped in front of the chair, looking down at the old man tied there. "But everyone breaks eventually. You just need to find the right pressure point." "This won't work," Vivienne said. "Even if I sign the NDA, federal prosecutors already have my testimony on record." "We know. That's why you're going to recant." "I won't." "Yes, you will. Because if you don't, I'll kill your father. Then I'll kill your cousin in Springfield. Then your college roommate in Boston. Then every single person you've ever cared about." Alicia tilted her head. "How many people have to die before you do what you're told?" Vivienne's mind raced. She needed time, a distraction, anything. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You're not Mafia. You're just some girl Luca used to make me jealous." Alessia's smile vanished. "I'm not some girl." "Then what are you?" "I'm the woman who's going to have everything you lost. Luca's empire is collapsing. You'll have nothing but prison visits. Luca won't go to prison, not if you recant your testimony." "And if I refuse?" Alessia raised the gun, pointing it directly at Vivienne's father's head. "Then I stopped missing." Vivienne's breathing came in short, sharp gasps. Her vision narrowed to the barrel of that gun pressed against her father's temple. "Okay," she said. "Okay. I'll sign." "And recant your testimony?" "Yes." "Say it like you mean it." "I'll recant my testimony." Alessia studied her face. "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then prove it. Get on your knees." "What?" "Get on your knees." Vivienne slowly lowered herself to the concrete floor. Cold seeped through her jeans. Her hands shook so badly she had to press them flat against the ground. "Good," Alessia said. "Now beg." "What?" "Beg me not to kill your father." Vivienne's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. But then she looked at her father's face, terrified, bleeding, helpless. "Please," she whispered, louder. "Please don't kill him." "Why shouldn't I?" "Because he's an old man. He has nothing to do with this." "He raised you. That makes him guilty." "Please." Vivienne's voice cracked. "I'll do whatever you want. Just let him go." Alessia walked toward her slowly, boots clicking against concrete. She stopped 2 feet away, looking down at Vivienne kneeling on the floor. "You really love him, don't you?" "Yes." "More than your pride?" "Yes." "More than revenge?" "Yes." Alessia crouched down, bringing her face level with Vivienne's. "Then you're weak. And weak people don't survive Luca's world." She stood up, walking back toward the chair. "Wait," Vivienne said. "I said I'll sign. I'll do everything you want." "I know, but here's the thing about teaching lessons." Alicia looked back over her shoulder. "They need to hurt." She turned the gun on Vivienne's father. Vivienne lunged forward. Alicia fired. The bullet hit the old man's shoulder. He jerked backward, the chair tipping, hitting the concrete with a sickening crack. Blood spread across his hospital gown. Vivienne reached him in 3 strides, dropping to her knees beside the overturned chair. Her father's eyes rolled back. His breathing came in wet, ragged gasps. "Stay with me," Vivienne said, pressing her hands against the wound. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot and thick. "Stay with me, please." Alessia stood over them. "You have 5 minutes to sign the NDA before I put another bullet in him." "He needs a hospital. He needs you to cooperate." Vivienne looked up at her. Mascara ran down Alessia's face in black streaks, but her hand holding the gun never wavered. "Where's the document?" Vivienne asked. Alessia pulled folded papers from her jacket pocket and dropped them beside Vivienne. A pen clattered after them. Vivienne kept one hand pressed against her father's wound while reaching for the papers with the other. Her fingers left bloody prints across the pages. She couldn't read the words through her tears. She just found the signature line and scrawled her name. "Done," she said. "Now call an ambulance." "Not yet." "He's bleeding out." "Then you better recant your testimony quickly." Vivienne stared at her. "I can't recant right now. I need to contact the prosecutors. Call them. They won't just accept a phone call. Then you better be convincing." Alicia checked her watch. "You have 4 minutes before your father bleeds to death." Vivienne's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. Blood smeared across the screen. She dialed Catherine Reeves. The prosecutor answered on the 3rd ring. "Mrs. DeLuca?" "I need to recant my testimony." Silence. "Excuse me?" "Everything I said today was coerced. I lied. I made it all up." "That's not possible." "I'm recanting, right now, officially." Catherine's voice sharpened. "Where are you?" "That doesn't matter." "Are you in danger?" "I'm recanting my testimony. That's all you need to know." "If someone's forcing you to say this, no one's forcing me. I lied to protect myself. I lied to hurt my ex-husband, and now I'm telling the truth." "I don't believe you." "I don't care." Vivienne looked at Alicia. "I'm recanting. All of it. The financial crimes, the money laundering, everything. I made it up." "We have documents." "That I fabricated. Check the dates. Check the signatures. You'll see they're forgeries." "This is insane." Vivienne hung up. She looked at Alicia. "Done. Now call the ambulance." Alessia smiled. "One more thing." "What?" "Text your prosecutor. Tell her you're leaving the country, that you won't be available for further questioning." "Why?" "Because Luca wants you gone. Disappeared. Forgotten." Vivienne typed the message with blood-slick fingers and hit send. "Happy?" she asked. Alessia pocketed the signed NDA. "Ecstatic." She turned to leave. "Wait," Vivienne shouted. "The ambulance!" Alicia paused at the door. "There is no ambulance. You really think Luca wants witnesses?" "You said—" "I said a lot of things. Most of them were lies." She pushed the door open. "You have about 3 minutes before he bleeds out. I'd hurry if I were you." Then she was gone. The warehouse door slammed shut. Vivienne heard a car engine start outside. Tires screeching away. She looked down at her father. His eyes were half closed. His breathing had slowed to shallow gasps. No, she whispered, pressing harder against the wound. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." Blood soaked through her jeans where she knelt. The smell of copper and fear filled her throat. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I need an ambulance, gunshot wound. He's bleeding." "What's your location?" Vivienne looked around wildly. "I don't know. Warehouse District, South Side, near—" Her voice broke. "I don't know the address." "Can you describe nearby landmarks?" "I don't know. Please just trace this call and send help." "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. My father is dying." She gave them what details she could. Cross streets, building descriptions, anything that might help them find this godforsaken place. Then she hung up and focused on keeping pressure on the wound. Her father's eyes fluttered open. "Vivienne," he whispered through the duct tape. She ripped the tape off his mouth. "Don't talk. Save your strength." "Can't breathe." The ambulance is coming. Just hold on. I'm sorry. For what? Should have protected you better. Tears blurred her vision. You protected me my whole life. This isn't your fault. Love you. I love you too, so much. So please don't leave me. His eyes closed. Dad? Dad! No response. Vivienne screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw. She screamed until she heard sirens in the distance. She screamed until paramedics burst through the door. They pulled her away from her father's body. Someone was talking to her, asking questions, shining lights in her eyes. But Vivienne wasn't there anymore. She was somewhere else, somewhere dark, somewhere cold, somewhere that understood one simple truth. Luca De Luca had taken everything from her, and now she was going to take his life. Diads. The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and despair. Vivienne sat in a plastic chair with dried blood crusting under her fingernails. A nurse had tried to clean her up. She'd refused. Catherine Reeves arrived 30 minutes after the ambulance. She sat down beside Vivienne without speaking. Finally, "Your father's in surgery." Vivienne didn't respond. "The doctors say it's touch and go. The bullet hit his subclavian artery. He lost a lot of blood." Still nothing. Vivienne. "What? Tell me what happened." "I already told the police." "Tell me." Vivienne turned to look at her. "Alessia Moretti shot my father. She forced me to recant my testimony. Then she left us to die. Why did you call me and recant?" "Because she had a gun to his head. So everything you said was under duress." "Obviously." Catherine leaned back. "Then your original testimony stands." "Does it matter? I signed the NDA." "Signed under coercion, which makes it invalid." "Luca won't see it that way." "Luca's going back to prison. Tonight." Vivienne laughed bitterly. "You couldn't keep him in prison yesterday. What makes you think you can hold him now?" "Because now he's committed kidnapping and attempted murder of a federal witness's family member. That's a different category of crime." "Good luck finding him. We already have people looking." "He's gone. He planned this perfectly. The second Alessia called him to confirm I signed the NDA, he disappeared." Catherine's phone buzzed. She checked it. Her expression changed. "What?" Vivienne asked. "We found Alessia's car, abandoned near the airport." "Let me guess. She's gone too." Flight manifests show 2 passengers matching their descriptions flew to the Cayman Islands 40 minutes ago. Vivienne closed her eyes. "Private jet?" "Yes." "Untraceable?" "We're working on it." "Which means yes." Vivienne stood up. "They won. I testified, I recanted, I signed away my rights, and they still destroyed me." "Your father's alive, barely. And if he survives, he'll spend the rest of his life in witness protection because of me. That's not—" "Yes, it is." Vivienne walked toward the exit. "Everything that's happened is because I tried to fight back. Celine's dead. Vincent's dead. My father's on an operating table. And Luca's sitting on a beach somewhere laughing." "Where are you going?" "I don't know. Somewhere he can't find me." Catherine stood up. "You can't run. Not now. Watch me. If you disappear, we lose our case against Luca. You already lost it when I recanted. We can fight that." "I'm done fighting." Vivienne pushed through the hospital doors into cold night air. "I'm done testifying. I'm done cooperating. I'm done sacrificing people I love to take down someone who will never face consequences." Catherine followed her outside. "So that's it? You just give up?" "I'm not giving up. I'm surviving." "By letting him win?" Vivienne turned around. "He already won. The moment I married him, he won. Everything since then has just been me realizing how badly I lost." She walked away. Catherine called after her. "If you leave now, you're on your own. No protection, no support, nothing." "Good. Everyone who tries to help me ends up dead anyway." Vivienne kept walking. She walked until the hospital disappeared behind her. She walked until her legs ached and her hands stopped shaking. She walked until she found herself standing on a bridge over the Chicago River, staring down at black water reflecting city lights. How easy it would be to just step over the railing, let the river take her, let everything end. She pulled out her phone, 16 missed calls from Catherine, 8 from various federal numbers, 3 from the hospital, and 1 text message from an unknown number. She opened it. A photograph appeared. Luca and Alessia on a beach. Sunset. Champagne glasses raised. The message beneath: "Thanks for your cooperation. Enjoy your new life." Vivienne stared at the photo for a long time. Then something inside her shifted. Not grief, not despair. Rage. Pure, cold, focused. She'd spent the last month trying to destroy Luca through courts and prosecutors and legal systems designed to protect men like him. She'd played by rules he never followed. She'd fought fair against someone who'd never fought fair in his life. And she'd lost everything. But there were other ways to fight, darker ways. Ways that didn't involve judges or juries or testimony. Ways that men like Luca understood. Vivienne looked at her reflection in the black water. The brilliant financial strategist was gone. The terrified wife was gone. The woman staring back at her was something new, something dangerous, something that finally understood the only way to destroy a monster was to become one yourself. She deleted the photograph. Then she made a phone call to someone she'd hoped never to contact again. A man who'd worked for Luca before the betrayal. A man who knew where bodies were buried because he'd helped bury them. A man who'd disappeared 6 months ago, but who Vivienne knew how to find. The phone rang 3 times. Then, "Who is this?" "Anton Volkov?" Silence. "How did you get this number?" "Your daughter gave it to me before she left Chicago." More silence. Then, "What do you want?" "I want to hire you. I don't work anymore." "You will for what I'm paying." "I'm retired." "You're hiding. There's a difference." Anton exhaled slowly. "Lady, I don't know who you think I am. I know exactly who you are. You're Luca DeLuca's former enforcer. You disappeared after he tried to kill you because you knew too much." "That's an interesting story." "It's the truth. And I'm betting you want revenge just as badly as I do." "What makes you think I want revenge?" "Because Luca killed your brother." The line went dead quiet. Vivienne pressed forward. "Victor Volkov, Luca's driver, found dead in Lake Michigan 2 years ago, officially ruled an accident, but you know better." "You don't know what you're talking about. I know Luca ordered the hit because Victor was skimming money. I know you've spent 2 years planning how to get even. And I know you can't do it alone because Luca's too protected." "And you think you can help?" "I know I can. Because I know things about Luca's operation that you don't. Account numbers, transfer routes, where he keeps his emergency cash." "What's your angle?" "My angle is Luca destroyed my life. He killed my attorney. He shot my father. He made me recant federal testimony. And now he's sitting on a beach in the Cayman Islands thinking he won." "Sounds like he did win." "Not yet. Because I'm still alive. And I know exactly how to hurt him." Anton was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want from me?" "Access. Connections. People who can move quietly and disappear completely." "That's a tall order. I'm offering $2 million. Cash. Untraceable." "Where would you get that kind of money?" "From Luca's offshore accounts, the ones I built, the ones I can still access." Another pause. "You're serious?" "Completely." "When?" "Tonight." "That's insane." "That's the only timeline I have. Luca thinks I'm broken. He thinks I recanted out of fear. He has no idea I'm coming for him. Even if I help you, getting to the Caymans takes time. I don't need to go to the Caymans. I need to destroy his empire from here, cut off his money, expose his assets, make sure that when he comes back to Chicago, and he will come back, there's nothing left." "And then?" "Then you do what you do best." Anton laughed darkly. "You want me to kill him. I want you to make him disappear, permanently. That's murder. That's justice." The line went silent for a full minute. Finally, "Where do we meet?" Vivienne gave him an address. A warehouse near the rail yards, empty this time of night. "1 hour," Anton said. "I'll be there." "Come alone." "Obviously." "And lady?" "Yes?" "If this is a trap, you'll die before you finish screaming." "It's not a trap. It's war." She hung up. For the first time in weeks, Vivienne felt something close to control. Not happiness, not peace, but purpose. Luca DeLuca had spent months systematically destroying her life. Now it was her turn. She checked her watch. 45 minutes until the meeting. 45 minutes to become someone she'd never imagined being. 45 minutes to cross a line she could never uncross. Vivienne walked away from the bridge. She didn't look back at the water. She didn't think about consequences. She just walked forward into the darkness, knowing that the woman who'd filed for divorce 3 months ago was dead. And the woman walking toward that warehouse was something new, something cold, something final. She pulled out her phone one last time and sent a single text message to Catherine Reeves. "Don't look for me. I'm already gone." Then she powered down the phone, dropped it in a trash can, and disappeared into the Chicago night. Behind her, the city glowed. Ahead of her, violence waited. And somewhere in the Cayman Islands, Luca DeLuca raised his champagne glass to celebrate a victory he didn't realize he hadn't won yet. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, Vivienne Hart wasn't playing by anyone's rules but her own. The warehouse near the rail yards looked exactly like the kind of place where lives ended quietly. Rust stains ran down corrugated metal walls. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. The smell of diesel and decay hung thick in the cold air. Vivienne arrived 20 minutes early. She parked 3 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, staying in shadows, watching for surveillance. Every instinct screamed that this was insane, meeting a known killer in an abandoned building to plan murder. But insanity was all she had left. The warehouse door hung open. Vivienne stepped inside, her footsteps echoing against concrete. Moonlight filtered through holes in the roof, creating patterns of light and shadow across the empty space. "You came alone," a voice said from the darkness. Vivienne didn't flinch. "Like you asked." Anton Volkov stepped into the light. Mid-50s, thick shoulders, scar running from his left temple to his jaw. The kind of face that had seen violence up close and learned to appreciate it. "You're either very brave or very stupid," he said. "I'm desperate. There's a difference." Anton circled her slowly, evaluating. Desperate people make mistakes. So do comfortable people. That's how Luca got where he is. And where is he? Cayman Islands, for now. "You sure about that?" Vivienne pulled out a tablet she'd bought with cash 2 hours ago. She showed Anton the screen, flight manifests, hotel reservations, credit card activity. He checked into the Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman at 6 this evening, penthouse suite. Paid for 2 weeks. Anton studied the information. "How'd you get this?" "I still have access to some of Luca's monitoring systems. He never changed the passwords because he never expected me to come after him." "Smart. Not smart enough." Anton handed the tablet back. "What's your plan?" "First, we drain his accounts. Every offshore dollar he thinks is hidden. I transfer it to untraceable wallets and burn the trail behind me. That's theft. That's asset recovery. The money was earned through criminal enterprises. I'm just redirecting it." "To yourself?" "Some of it. The rest goes to you. 2 million, like I promised. The remainder gets split among people Luca destroyed over the years." Anton raised an eyebrow. "You're playing Robin Hood?" "I'm playing cleanup. Luca's empire was built on ruined lives. I helped build it. Now I'm tearing it down." "And after the money?" "After the money, we expose everything else. I have files documenting every crime, every payoff, every dirty deal. I send them to every federal agency, every news outlet, every politician who ever took Luca's cash." "That'll take time." "I have time. What I don't have is patience." Anton walked to the window, looking out at the dark rail yard. "And me? Where do I fit in this righteous crusade?" Vivienne's voice went cold. "You do what you wanted to do 2 years ago when Luca killed your brother." "Which is?" "You make sure he never comes back." Anton turned around. "You want me to kill him." "I want him gone, permanently. I don't care how it happens." "That's a lot of blood on your hands." "My hands are already bloody. Celine Kane, Vincent Carr, my father dying on an operating table." Vivienne stepped closer. "Luca spent years teaching me that survival requires sacrifice. Now I'm applying the lesson." Anton studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not warmly, just acknowledgement. You've changed, he said. I had to. Most people don't survive that kind of change. I'm not most people. No, Anton agreed. You're not. He pulled out his phone and made a call, spoke in rapid Russian to someone on the other end, then hung up. I have people in the Caymans, he said, former associates who owe me favors. They can locate Luca and keep him under watch. How long before they're in position? They already are. I made the call before you arrived. Vivienne stared at him. You were planning this anyway. I've been planning this for 2 years. You just gave me the excuse to execute. So you don't need me. I need your access. Luca's security is tight, but you know his patterns, his weaknesses, where he feels safe. Anton leaned against the window frame. Together, we can do in 3 days what would take me 6 months alone. 3 days? That's how long Luca stays comfortable in one location. After that, he moves. New hotel, new identity, new security protocols. Then we move faster. Agreed. Vivienne pulled up another file on the tablet. This is everything I have: account numbers, transfer protocols, security codes, shell company structures. Anton took the tablet, scrolling through pages of financial data. His expression darkened as he read. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Luca was moving more money than I thought. 40 million annually through 6 different networks. The offshore accounts are just the visible layer. Where's the rest? Real estate, gold, cryptocurrency, spread across 17 countries. You mapped all of this? I built all of this. Now I'm dismantling it. Anton looked up from the screen. This is going to destroy more than just Luca, his partners, his investors, everyone connected to this empire. Good. Some of those people are dangerous, more dangerous than Luca. Then they can come for me. I'm not hiding anymore. Anton handed the tablet back. You really want war with everyone? I want the truth exposed. Whatever happens after that is just consequences. He was quiet for a moment. Then, when do we start? Now. They worked through the night. Anton brought in 3 associates, Russians with technical skills and no moral boundaries. They set up equipment in the warehouse, turning the empty space into a makeshift operations center. Vivienne walked them through Luca's financial architecture, step by step. This account feeds into a holding company in Luxembourg, she said, pointing at the screen. The holding company funnels money to a hedge fund in Singapore. The hedge fund invests in properties across Europe. One of Anton's men typed rapidly. I can access the Luxembourg account. What's the authentication protocol? Vivienne recited the codes from memory. Numbers flowed across screens. Money began moving. $40,000 transferred from the Cayman account to a wallet in Prague. Then another $60,000 to a Swiss account. Then $200,000 to an untraceable cryptocurrency exchange. We're bleeding him dry, Anton said, watching the numbers cascade. Not fast enough, Vivienne replied. He has backup accounts, emergency reserves. We need to hit everything simultaneously. That requires coordination. Then coordinate. Anton made more calls. Within an hour, they had 8 people working across 4 countries, executing transfers, liquidating assets, burning digital trails. By sunrise, they'd moved $18 million out of Luca's control. Vivienne stood at the window, watching dawn break over Chicago. Her eyes burned, her hands ached, but she felt alive for the first time in months. He knows, Anton said behind her. She turned around. What? Luca. He just called his bank in the Caymans. My people intercepted the call. He's screaming at account managers, demanding to know where his money went. Good. Let him panic. Panic makes people dangerous. So does desperation. And right now, we're both. Anton's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. His expression changed. What? Vivienne asked. Luca just booked a flight back to Chicago. When? Leaves in 4 hours. Arrives tonight. Vivienne's pulse quickened. He's coming back to stop us. No, he's coming back to kill you. Then we finish this before he lands. She turned back to the computers. Transfer everything. Now. I don't care about covering tracks anymore. Empty every account. Liquidate every asset. Burn it all. The Russians worked faster. Money moved in torrents now. Millions flowing out of Luca's empire into dozens of untraceable destinations. By noon, they'd transferred $41 million. Luca's offshore empire was rubble. Now the files, Vivienne said. She uploaded everything to encrypted servers. Financial records, criminal activities, payoffs, murders, evidence connecting Luca to 20 years of organized crime. Then she sent the files everywhere. FBI, DEA, IRS, SEC, Chicago Tribune, New York Times, every federal prosecutor in Illinois. It's done, she said quietly. Anton looked at the screen showing confirmation receipts flooding in. You just destroyed him completely. Not completely. He's still breathing. He won't be by tomorrow. Vivienne turned to face him. What happens now? Now my people in the Caymans make sure Luca never boards that flight. How? Anton's expression was flat. You don't want details. Yes, I do. No, you don't, because knowing makes you complicit in ways even you aren't ready for. Vivienne held his gaze. I hired you to kill him. I'm already complicit. Hiring is different from witnessing. I don't need to witness. I just need confirmation. Anton nodded slowly. You'll have it. He made one final call, spoke briefly, hung up. It's done, he said. What's done? The order. My people will handle it tonight before Luca reaches the airport. How will I know it worked? You won't hear from him again. That's how you'll know. Vivienne sat down on a concrete ledge, suddenly exhausted. Everything she'd built over the last 12 hours was crashing down on her at once. She'd just orchestrated a murder, not in self-defense, not in the heat of passion, coldly, deliberately, methodically. Are you having second thoughts? Anton asked. I'm having all the thoughts. That's normal. Is it? Because I don't feel normal. I feel like something inside me died. Something did die. The woman who believed justice happens through legal systems. That woman's gone. So what am I now? Anton sat down beside her. A survivor. Same as the rest of us. They sat in silence while the Russians packed up equipment and wiped down computers. Finally, Vivienne spoke. What happens to you after this? I disappear. Again. Somewhere Luca's partners can't find me. And your family? Already relocated. My daughter's in Australia under a new name. My ex-wife remarried someone clean. They're safe. Do they know what you do? My daughter knows I'm not a good man. That's enough. Vivienne thought about her own father still in surgery. I hope he survives. Your father. Yes. He will. Old men are tougher than they look. And if he doesn't? Anton stood up. Then you live with it, same as you'll live with everything else you've done. He walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing, he said. The money you had me transfer. The $2 million you promised me. It's in your account. I know, but I'm giving it back. Vivienne looked up. What? I'm giving it back. All of it. Why? Because killing Luca isn't a job. It's personal. You don't pay for personal. He smiled grimly. Besides, you already paid me 2 years ago when you married that bastard and made my brother's death mean something. I don't understand. Victor was skimming money to help me escape. Luca found out and killed him, but Victor died buying me time to disappear with my daughter. Anton's voice roughened. You destroying Luca's empire means my brother didn't die for nothing. That's payment enough. He left before Vivienne could respond. She sat alone in the empty warehouse while morning light streamed through broken windows. Her phone buzzed. She'd bought a new burner phone that morning. Only one person had the number. Catherine Reeves. Vivienne answered. I told you not to look for me. Your father's out of surgery, Catherine said. Vivienne's breath caught. Is he alive? Yes, critical but stable. He'll need months of recovery, but the doctors think he'll survive. Tears burned Vivienne's eyes. Can I see him? Not yet. He's in intensive care under federal protection. No visitors except medical staff. When? When we're sure Luca isn't coming back to finish what Alicia started. He's not coming back. How do you know? Vivienne looked at the computers where millions of dollars had been rerouted, at the empty warehouse where she'd hired an assassin, at her own reflection in a grimy window. Because I ended it, she said quietly. Ended what? Everything. Catherine was silent for a moment. What did you do? What I had to. Vivienne, don't. Don't ask me for details. Don't ask me to testify again. Don't ask me to be the person I was a year ago. She's gone. Then who are you now? Vivienne looked at her hands, still stained with her father's blood. I'm someone who survived, she said. She hung up. 3 days later, the news broke. Chicago Mafia boss found dead in Cayman Islands. Luca De Luca dies in apparent drowning. Federal investigation reveals massive financial crimes. Vivienne watched the coverage from a hotel room in Milwaukee, far enough from Chicago to feel safe, close enough to drive back if her father's condition changed. The report said Luca's body was found floating near his hotel early morning. No signs of struggle. Blood alcohol level indicated intoxication. Investigators ruled it an accidental drowning. But Vivienne knew better. Anton's people had been thorough. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The water was cold. He went quickly. She deleted the message. The news continued. Federal investigators announced they'd received extensive documentation of Luca's criminal empire. Warrants were being issued for 37 associates. Assets totaling over $60 million were being seized. The empire Vivienne had helped build was collapsing in real time, and she felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not relief, just emptiness. She turned off the television and lay back on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in Chicago, her father was recovering. Somewhere in Australia, Anton's daughter was safe. Somewhere in the Cayman Islands, Luca De Luca's body was being prepared for transport back to Chicago, and Vivienne Hart was alive. Damaged, changed, unrecognizable from the woman she'd been a year ago, but alive. 4 months later, Vivienne sat in a small office overlooking the river on the east side of Chicago. The space was clean, simple. A desk, 2 chairs, windows facing the water. The sign on the door read, Hart Financial Recovery Services, specializing in helping women rebuild after financial abuse and coercive relationships. Her first client arrived at 10, mid-30s, nervous, carrying documents in a folder she clutched too tightly. Thank you for seeing me, the woman said. Of course. Sit down. The woman sat. I don't even know where to start. Start with your name. Rachel. Rachel Connors. Okay, Rachel, tell me what happened. Rachel opened the folder. Bank statements, legal documents, divorce papers. My husband controlled everything, she began. I thought we were building a life together, but he was hiding money, forging signatures, planning to leave me with nothing. Vivienne listened. She knew this story. She'd lived this story. I can help you, she said. How? By showing you how to find what he hid, how to document the fraud, how to fight back legally. Vivienne paused. And how to survive what comes after. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I'm so scared. I know, but fear doesn't have to win. They worked for 2 hours. Vivienne walked Rachel through financial forensics, legal options, protection strategies. By the end, Rachel looked less terrified and more determined. Thank you, Rachel said as she left. I didn't think anyone would understand. I understand, Vivienne said quietly. More than you know. After Rachel left, Vivienne sat alone in her office. Her phone buzzed. Catherine Reeves, your father's being released next week. Thought you'd want to know. Vivienne replied, thank you. Another message. He's asking about you. Tell him I'm okay. Are you? Vivienne looked out the window at Chicago spread beneath gray spring skies. Was she okay? She'd destroyed a criminal empire. She'd orchestrated a murder. She'd lost friends, family, her entire identity. But she'd survived, and now she was helping other women survive too. Was that okay? She didn't know. Maybe she never would, but it was something. She texted back, I'm getting there. That night, Vivienne visited her father for the first time in 4 months. The federal protection had been lifted once Luca's associates were arrested. Her father had been moved to a private rehabilitation facility on the north side. She found him in a sunny room overlooking a garden. He looked smaller than she remembered, thinner, older, but alive. "Hi, Dad," she said from the doorway. He turned his head slowly, smiled. "There's my girl." Vivienne crossed the room and hugged him carefully, mindful of his healing shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" "For everything. For marrying Luca, for dragging you into this, for almost getting you killed." Her father pulled back to look at her face. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I raised you to be strong, to fight back. Sometimes fighting back gets messy. This was more than messy. I'm alive. You're alive. That's all that matters." Vivienne sat down beside his bed. "I started a business." "I heard. Financial recovery services." "How did you know?" "Catherine told me. She checks in sometimes." Her father smiled. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "I helped build a criminal empire. I orchestrated someone's death. I'm not exactly a hero." "No, but you're a survivor, and now you're helping other people survive." He took her hand. "That's more than most people do with their second chances." "Do you think I'll ever stop feeling guilty?" "Probably not, but guilt means you still have a conscience. Don't lose that." They sat quietly for a while. Finally, Vivienne spoke. "What happens now?" "Now you keep living, keep helping people, keep moving forward." "What if I can't?" "You can, because you're my daughter, and my daughter doesn't quit." Vivienne smiled despite herself. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time I got shot defending my daughter from a mafia boss. Near-death experiences clarify things." They talked for another hour. About recovery, about the future, about small, ordinary things that felt extraordinary after months of violence and fear. When Vivienne finally left, the sun was setting over Chicago. She drove back to her apartment, a small studio far from the penthouse she'd shared with Luca. Concrete walls, tall windows. Silence. She poured herself wine and stood at the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, women were trapped in marriages like hers had been, controlled, manipulated, slowly erased, and tomorrow she'd help one of them find a way out. Not through violence, not through revenge, through knowledge, documentation, legal strategy. The tools she'd learned building Luca's empire, now used to help others escape theirs. It wasn't redemption. She wasn't sure redemption was even possible after everything she'd done, but it was purpose. And right now, purpose was enough. Vivienne's phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her look. A message appeared. "You survived. That's rarer than you think. Don't waste it." No signature, no indication who sent it. But Vivienne knew. Anton. Checking in from wherever he'd disappeared to, reminding her that survival meant something. She deleted the message. Then she finished her wine, closed the curtains, and went to bed. For the first time in months, she slept through the night. No nightmares, no fear, just darkness. And when morning came, Vivienne Hart woke up in her small apartment overlooking the river and realized something unexpected. She was still alive, still fighting, still becoming whatever came next. The wife of a mafia boss had died. The woman who'd testified against him had disappeared. What remained was something new, something scarred, something that understood the cost of survival and chose to pay it anyway. Vivienne looked at her calendar. 3 client appointments today, women who needed help, women who needed someone who understood. She got dressed, made coffee, and left her apartment. Chicago glowed in the morning light, the city that had witnessed her destruction and her rebuilding. And as Vivienne walked toward her office, she made herself one promise. She would never again let fear decide her future. She would never again sacrifice herself for someone else's empire. And she would spend the rest of her life making sure other women didn't have to either. It wasn't the ending she'd imagined a year ago. It wasn't happy. It wasn't clean. But it was hers. And that was enough. Mom. 6 months later, Vivienne received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from Sydney, Australia. Inside was a single photograph. A teenage girl standing on a beach at sunset, smiling, alive. And written on the back in Russian. She's safe. Because of you. Thank you. Vivienne put the photograph in a drawer where she kept things that mattered. Her father's hospital bracelet from his surgery. A business card from Celine Kane's office. A news clipping about Luca's death. Reminders of everything she'd survived, everything she'd lost, everything she'd become. She closed the drawer and got back to work. Because survival wasn't a destination, it was a choice, made every single day. And Vivienne Hart chose to keep surviving, not for revenge, not for justice, but for the women sitting in her office tomorrow, desperate and afraid, who needed to see that escape was possible, that rebuilding was possible, that life after destruction was possible. Vivienne had paid a brutal price to learn those lessons, but she'd learned them, and now she was teaching others, one client at a time, one survival story at a time, until the day she could finally look in the mirror and see something other than damage, until the day she could say the war was truly over, until the day she could forgive herself for everything she'd done to stay alive. That day hadn't arrived yet. Maybe it never would, but Vivienne Hart was still here, still fighting, still breathing. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. The woman who'd loved a mafia boss was dead. The woman who'd survived him was just beginning.